Today we're going to talk about empire building in Songs of Syx. This game is so deep you may never even touch it. And there's lots of playthroughs in which you don't even have to interact with any other factions other than trade if you want to or don't. But there's a lot of really fun things you can do in the actual empire building phase of the game. And so today I wanted to talk all about that. Give you a couple tips and tricks to make your city even better, utilizing the taxes and occupied territories that you can bring in to your utopia or dystopia. That's up to you. All right, let's get into it. We're going to do something a little unrealistic. We're going to set a lot of our starting tech to be really high. What I mean by that is we're going to have 100 innovation points, 100 knowledge points, 100 administration points, 100 government points, and 100 emissary points. We're also going to increase deflation, making our money last longer for a couple of other things we need to do. So obviously this is an unrealistic normal start, but it helps me make the video in a timely manner. All right, let's get into it. And welcome to LaundryTown. My name's Laundry. Also, my wife had the idea potentially of changing the name from LaundryTown to Sud City. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts on that. Very controversial take. With this starting tile, we do have 3 neighbors, which is going to help us out a lot for trade early on. We set down our settlement. We have 10 people. The first thing you might notice over here is up at the top in our technology points, we have 300 of them. Like we said, that's what those numbers in the settings do. They give you those starting points, at least for administration, innovation, and knowledge. Normally, it would take you a very long time to even accumulate this. And the way you do that is through just generally leveling up with your population. So obviously super unrealistic that you're going to have this number here at the beginning, but I wanted to do it for testing purposes. Before we set down our settlement, let's talk about the general map. If we go over to toggle view up at the top here, that's going to take us to the entire world map. We can also press tab, the empire view. So this is our town, LaundryTown, right here. And you can see in context, there's a decent amount of people around us. We can hover over this for overlays specifically for this big empire map here. Let's do one here that makes a lot of sense, factions. So what the faction overlay will tell us, okay, what specific areas have a gigantic empire and what areas are just free cities. So we're right here. We're right in between a couple of small people. The Maraz over here is just a single city nation. Pale Claw as well, single city nation. We also have a free nation here in Old Cairn proper, another one over here as well. But to the left of here, we do have Fangarden. Now, Fangarden here is a 2-city empire, all surrounded in orange. So that's a quick way for you to be able to see what are the big empires. Now, if you zoom out, you can see immediately to the left, we have a very big empire. This is Liari, so it's very big. You can see just how many people that they have. So they would be a very difficult nation to actually mess with. You can see their ancestral lands of Liari. They're mostly Emevian. They have a 1.22 opinion of us, which is positive. It's pretty good. Although it would be better if they were also humans. So different species obviously have lesser opinions of the current species that you have. We have 153% trust, mainly because we've been honorable. We haven't done anything to mess with our honor. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The distance from them to our capital, it affects trade prices, things along those lines for taxes, tolls, and tariffs. So the toll would be 60.250 and the tariff is 0.25. Talk about those numbers a little bit later. Power is the overall military might that they have. This is really high. Obviously, they're really big, 4,287. In comparison to a smaller empire, their power is 200, so very small. They do have $219 million of net worth. Most of that, though, is through resources, population, interns, and then the regions that they also hold, bringing in that money. And they have 138,000 subjects all throughout all of their entire cities and occupied territory. This screen just gives you a general overview of the different regions. So you can click on any of these here as well, and they'll take you there. The closer one is going to be at the top, and then it gets bigger and bigger from there. Specifically by distance, you can see that here. So this is all sorted by distance. These guys are really far, Tharkesh. And the farthest one away is Vajra, all the way up in the corner. They have a decent sized empire, but just quick information. You will notice that a lot of these are grayed out, except for the ones at the top here. If they're grayed out, that means that they are not your neighbors. It does not mean that you can't trade with them. It just means that you can't make a trade agreement. So any of these that are not grayed out, you can actually make a trade agreement. We'll talk about that in a second. Anything that is grayed out, you're not able to do that. You can declare war on them and you can actually trade, but of course, the bigger distance, the more money you have to pay. Now we've talked a little bit about this screen. Of course, you can look at the individual city as well if you'd like. Let's talk about Fangarden for a second. This is the region of Fangarden. This is the empire. But if we look at Fangarden itself, this is the actual city. Let's take a different one. Let's take a Netter's Rest. So they're part of Fangarden as the empire, the 2-city empire. But this is specifically for this city now. We don't control anything about the city, so we only get this menu. There will be another menu I'll show later on that will show us information on any occupied territories that we own, that we have loyal subjects. So of course you have support towards our majesty. Currently it is 0 because we're not their majesty. If we wanted to send emissaries, we could. We do have 100 total emissary points. This is one way to spend them in order to try to get more support for us as a majesty. We don't have any sort of alliance with them. They're not our subjects. So this is really not going to do a whole lot. It shows us the area. This is the size of the region with fertility and basically says how big and how many people can actually be supported. 98 is pretty good. Their worth, moisture level, this is 99%, is right next to a river, so that of course makes sense. The climate, this is going to be temperate, and in the effects of that climate specifically. So cold actually does better with, I believe, opiates and other things, but it does worse on the pastures, whereas temperate, you can see, does really good for pastures and farms. Warm has its own effects as well. The terrain it'll tell you, so freshwater, forest, open land. So you can see the vast majority of this is forest and land, but you also have some good fresh water. But you don't have any ocean, you don't have any mountains. Neighbors are just the neighbors that it has close to it. So Fangarden, Lastervern, Dockwater, and Bastlehaven. You can also see that with those arrows here coming directly once you hover over this. If you selected a different area like ours, for instance, or if you selected Miraz, you'd see they had different neighbors as well. And now back on there's rest. On the bottom here, it says the religion percentage. So most of them are craterism, but it does have percentages of all of the different religions. And then down here at the bottom, it gives you the prospect for each individual resource you could possibly get from that region. Later on, when we actually occupy and control those regions, we'll be able to actually use these to our benefit. I'll talk about that when we get there. These are all spoils, productions, inns, workers guild. These are all things that the current administration are putting forward. Obviously, we don't have any control of any of these things. And at the very bottom, you'll actually be able to see their garrison. So currently it's sized at 189. And if you look at their soldiers, there's 189 of them. If you know anything about the soldier screen, this tells you a little bit, but quickly I'll say, hey, does our army stack up against this? We don't have an army right now, but imagine we did. Do we have either more soldiers than they do? Do we have better trained soldiers, better equipped soldiers? Do we combat them a little bit better? This is very defense heavy type of garrison here, and so it might make sense for us to have something that combats a lot of that extra armor. So archers could be a good example of that, or just a mass amount of. So that's how we know a little bit more about that specific region. We can scout them out that way and look for different opportunities. Maybe this guy only has 125 people, really. Basically the same amount of outfit, but less people. And they're humans, so they're not as good. They have less morale. You can see these much bigger areas have much stronger powered units. So this is a quick way to see, hey, does it make sense for us to actually send our army out there? Okay, at the upper left tab, you have similar to what you would see in other places, but you have your factions. This is what we looked at before. To the left, you have your realms. If you actually occupy any realms, they'll show up here. If you click on the bottom for all, you can actually look for specific realms if you'd like to. This one, it tends to be sorted, I think, by just different, I'm assuming by area. No, something different. Maybe worth, might be distance. Anyway, it's another way. I tend to not use that search function anyway, but that's available for your realms. Then you have armies. Armies is how you can actually recruit your own armies. We don't have anything right now, but if we wanted to, if we had other occupied territories, we could recruit and then train soldiers from that individual territory. If we had an army, we don't have anyone assigned, but this is how we can deploy our own army. We'd of course still need to supply them. Also the same thing with your conscripts. You'd have to create that unit and still supply them anyway. Not going to get too much into military for this video. And then if you have enough money, you can of course buy some mercenaries. We have some pretty expensive mercenaries this run. They tend to be much better melee trained, but smaller, unless you're actually going to get and spend way more money. Like this one is 1.61 million. You get 195 soldiers at 53% melee trained, significantly more power. They got way better equipment, and so they would be really good if you could afford it. But this is your army tab. You can set up different armies. We can make a whole other army, for example, if we wanted to. You can have multiple armies. You can occupy them in specific areas if you'd like. We're gonna go ahead and dismantle one because we don't have anybody to add anyway. Right next to that, in the kind of house area, you have havens. These are smaller settlements. If you want to look for cantors and argonash, this is a way to do that. I haven't really talked too much about cantors or argonash, but they have specific requirements in order for you to actually get them into your city. You can't just immigrate them in. And this is one possible way for you to look and see, hey, can I actually bring in any species? It requires a specific amount of a religion, food days, humidifiers, population, and slaves for the argonash. The cantors, arthurism, sculptures, and population tends to be a little bit easier for the cantors to bring them in. And cantors are really strong military-wise, so that's why it's kind of nice to be able to get them if you'd like to. But these are havens for different kinds of species. You'll notice that none of these species are very close to us. So this is just a small little haven next to this area. We're not going to focus too much on that. That's not really for this video. Right below that, you have inbound. So if you have any sort of goods or things that you've ordered, you'll actually be able to track what is coming inbound to you, which will be nice to say, like, hey, how long should I be waiting for for a specific good. I ordered a bunch of tools, for example. This will be able to show you that. And then now we get to the really good stuff. So up at the top here are emissary. This will tell you the emissary points that you have, the efficiency if you're spending them on anything. We're not spending them on anything yet. And then just below that are governor points. The big things for your empire building are going to be emissary and governor points. Governor points are going to help you grow your individual occupied territory, and I'll show you how to do that in a sec. And then the emissary points allow you to kind of interact with other factions. So we already have some base emissary points. We could probably set up any sort of thing that we'd like to. Back in the main realm here, let's talk about, let's see, who's the easiest one to mess with. We have good opinion here. So we actually have the best opinion with the bug people over here. And so something that you can do with the emissary points is just right here, if you click on court of that specific region, you can actually go down here and spend your 100 available emissary points. You could flatter this specific ruler here, or actually any specific person. So let's say that this person seems like they're pretty old. They're 31, so they might die soon. This guy's 28, this guy's 15, this guy's 13. So maybe instead of clicking the actual ruler, you decide to click one of these other people who might go in after he dies, might become the ruler afterwards. You can actually flatter them, right? And kind of set up for future generations how their opinion of you is gonna. You could also sabotage things. This will decrease their opinion of you. Could potentially be a strategy if you're trying to soil distrust. Interesting playthrough strategy there. I'll probably talk about a little bit later. And then assassinate. So let's say that you have a specific ruler that you really don't like this one right here. You actually really like this guy. Maybe you just assassinate the main dude. All that these extra emissary points are doing are for the assassinate, they're increasing the attempts per year. So how about we increase this all the way up to 16 just to give you guys an example. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have 15 total, or we're going to have 12.022 assassination attempts a year. So eventually this guy is going to get assassinated for sure, and then we'll come back and see what actually happened. In the meantime, I'm just going to make a tiny little settlement, work on that, and if a pop-up comes up, I'll talk. But in the meantime, get these guys situated. All right, just like that, it's only been a couple of days, but we have been able to assassinate this guy. Their mission is done. The Great Lord of Miraz slipped last night on their night dress, leading to a fall down the stairs of its bed chamber. Once down, a chandelier happened to fall on top of Grawley's head, crushing the skull completely. What a tragedy. All right, now that we know that that happened, if we go back to Miraz, you'll see that one of the people unfortunately died. All right, we're going to do it again now with the main king person. I thought that's what I did it on before. Maybe I was wrong, but we'll try them. Oh, it was. Sorry, I just realized this. Uldred was one of the children who is now the ruler. I just didn't recognize it because of the crown. The crown just goes on whoever that emperor or the king is or whatever. So now Uldred the fifth is currently the emperor. So we'll be able to potentially assassinate them. All right, we'll come back. Okay, so here's another thing that happened. One of our emissaries serving the court of Miraz was arrested and tortured. Unfortunately, our plans have been compromised. So now he knows this and is not too happy about it. Our attempts will continue, but it will be harder now. So one of the things I want to show you guys, of course, is the ramifications of that. Is their opinion of us went down super hard because of the assassination. So that's something to definitely consider, is the trust goes down. If you have other like bug people, for example, I'm assuming that their trust will also, no, actually they don't care. Never mind. It's just a specific one that cares, at least right now. We'll see if that continues to be a theme. Looks like we had an emissary caught one more time, unfortunately. The attempts will continue, but we did get busted again. What's the impacts of that? Negative 2.82, so the assassinations are hurting us a lot. So one of the effects, of course, of having super negative opinion is this guy has decided to make a demand of us. We could accept it or decline it. If we decline it and they're really strong, potentially they could come after us. I'm just going to decline it because I'm feeling insane. Assassination attempt was foiled again. That's not going super well, it looks like. All right, and they were angry enough at us that finally they have decided to actually declare war upon us. So we have a couple of options, none of them very good. We could try to barter for peace. We don't have enough money for this. It's currently 25k to do that, so that's not going to work. We could keep trying to assassinate, of course. They have 503 in their army, so they're probably just going to beat us, so we might just end up having to take as an example here. But, you know, bit of a bummer, but what are you going to do? This goes to show over trying to assassinate people. Maybe it's not the best move. Right, if we look, they are about to come and mess us up here. This army right outside of our city. They might try to come and get us any day now. We'll see. None of these have been successful in a while. All right, they did arrive and they are saying that we have been beaten and we really don't have anything. I could decline the peace. I could accept it. How about I accept it? Why not? Well, now that I've accepted this peace here, Really nothing happens. Not a whole lot has changed between us and them. They haven't made us a vassal or anything like that, so really not a whole lot happened. This is obviously a very odd little bug that you're gonna have here, but essentially these guys' opinion of us is actually positive because of our peace treaty, and that's why they're not going to war with us. We've had like five assassination attempts in a row that have not worked, so that's fun. We could try someone else maybe. How would we try the sun this time? Tobias. Let's try that. See if we can end his son. All right, that didn't work out too well. And somehow, even with multiple assassination attempts, opinions still pretty good with the peace that we just won. Crazy, we didn't fight them at all. So obviously a little bit of bug here, We should have gotten more from that. They were very weak. Weren't really able to do anything with us anyways. Well, currently our assassination attempts are not working at all. So let's try a different strategy. How about instead, we could try to flatter them. Let's go for that. All right, you can see how immediately powerful the flattery cycle is here because we didn't get a pop-up or anything like that. But if we go up to the top here to their opinion, you can see the base value is 1.5. The peace treaty we currently have is plus 12. Our generosity is very good. Extortion's not too bad. Our flattery though is making up a gigantic, a huge makeup right now. So currently it's plus 16 for flattery. We are still dealing with some lingering assassination attempts. I don't know what's up with that. And nearness is pretty good. So currently their opinion of us is super high. What can you do with opinion? But if we decided to spend some money, we could do things like become colleagues, where we could help ourselves with production for trade, right? So we could become a colleague. It's going to cost us 6K, but that'll be all good. We can make an alliance. If your opinion is high, and this is actually very helpful, you can actually have your army cross through theirs to go to a different location, and it's not going to become like a war threat. It could become a protector, which means that at the end of every year, they will give us something in the form of tribute. Typically, it tends to be like money, or we could become a vassal, which essentially means that we will have to pay a 10% tax at the end of each year, and in return, essentially, we are going to get protection from other attackers. So, like if there's raiders, or if there was another faction who maybe wanted to come in and actually try to attack us, if we have a big enough king, for example, maybe this makes sense. I don't know. And then, of course, we could also unite with them. We could do that anytime we want. Of course, it's going to cost us 119 mil. But if you have an insane amount of money, like you don't even need to spend anything. However, that being said, this is a very small city. Like it's actually super small. They currently have 537. So it's like they don't have like anyone, which seems insane. And if you actually looked at their army here, I don't know how they're able to sustain this army, 115 people, when they themselves are only like 500. That doesn't make any sense. But, you know, is what it is. It seems like the start of the game just has an automatic number of how many people are in a specific city that's got a kingdom. If we go to the freed lands, like they have the same amount of people in there for their military. But if we look at their actual population, currently it's 1,300. So it's more than double how big this other kingdom is, this other city, and yet they have the same amount of garrisons. Anyway, I'm not going to overthink that. At the very beginning of the game, we're currently year 3 in. All of the militaries are relatively similar. All of them have about 15% experience. It's been a couple years now. They have 17%. And obviously, nations who do a little bit more war, they're going to have more melee as well. But that's something to keep in mind. It's an easy target to hit pretty quickly, whether that's with money, to buy mercenaries or whatever. You could definitely hit this money very quickly and then just take over occupied territories. And that's what we're going to do right now. So we currently don't have any trade agreements, but we are very soon going to be able to get a carpenter up, get that going. We have a stone mine right here, a clay mine right here, and a bunch of wood. So we're going to get these going to get those set up. And our goal is essentially to take this entire city here, and we're going to fully supply them with external occupied territory. All right, I'll see you when I'm ready to do it. I'm also going to pause here for a really quick tip. So what I did here is I made a very efficient logistical system. We have the woodcutters here. There's 14 of them. We're producing 55 wood per day, and that wood is going directly into this warehouse, which as we get wood, that's where it'll go. It would help if I actually stocked it with wood. There you go. Now we're starting to get wood here. We're gonna get a whole bunch. The wood is going directly from the woodcutter here into the wood warehouse, where then the furniture makers, the carpenter here, can actually take them directly. It's consuming 42 wood a day to output 10.55 furniture. Humans are only okay at making furniture and just general crafting, but as soon as they're done with that, then they can take it to this warehouse, which is all furniture. So it's nice initial resource to the storage of that, second production to the storage of that second production, and they're nice clean furniture assembly line. All right, so I've saved up a good amount of money. We're gonna do a little test here. So the big thing that you want to talk about when you're looking for the first place to occupy is anywhere that you have a trade agreement probably isn't the best place to do it, because you get significant penalties for any sort of like backstabbery, right? They call it chivalry, I believe. All right, we got some money. Let's go ahead and grab these guys here. There's only 45 of them. They have 40% melee training. They have 140 140 power. If we look at Old Cairn proper, check them out. They have 126 garrison, 149 power, 15% for 106, and then another 20, so 146. These guys are actually pretty close. I think I might just have to hold off for a little bit longer. Nice thing about Mercenaries is that you don't need to supply them at all. We can afford these guys now, but the maintenance fee is the thing that I worry about the most right now. 400,000 a day, but basically we'd only be able to get a single day out of that production, so that's obviously not enough. What's going on with the woodcutters? Like we're having issues there. Go ahead and put some tech points into the woodcutters, so that'll be able to help us out. A couple people died doing that. That makes sense. I think if we could get up to about 3 million, that'll be plenty for what we want to do. And we are able to become an alliance with these guys. Let's go ahead and, oh, it's going to take a bunch of money actually. Never mind. Screw that. But these guys can become an alliance with these guys. I want to get these guys up to plus 100 here for a little bit. Okay, that's rude. Up to 2.31 million. All good. Get up to a +6 with Vanguard. So a couple things you'll notice off the bat, depending on the type of relationship you have with an individual entity, you'll be able to do a couple of things. One of them, you saw here that new tribes here, we are currently not able to do anything with them. We could have made a trade agreement, but now we aren't. And that's because Pale Claw, who we used to be colleagues with, are no longer with. I took off our emissary points. And so even though we actually didn't occupy them, that wasn't our city that we occupied, we were able to actually use them to access this really big faction here in order to actually trade. Now, unfortunately, because Pale Claw no longer is our colleague, that's a big issue. And in order for them to be colleagues, we need to have 2.5 opinion of. No longer having an opinion, looks like that's going to hurt us a little bit. Let's actually just go ahead and decrease this. We'll just say 50 each. You can see the benefit of having all of these emissary points, right? It does take a lot to do a whole bunch of things, but like 4.3 is the best we're going to be able to do here. So we will go ahead and take off all of our emissary points there, go right back to them. And what we'll be able to do with this, of course, is become colleagues as soon as we get above 6. That's going to cost us, it looks like 14,000. We could also become an alliance with them. That's going to cost us way more, 1.46 million. That's a lot of money. So I'm going to say no. And here is going to be the cost of this. We got 2.46 in the bank. We can go make an army right now. So obviously I want to be able to take over Old Cairn proper, right? The only way for me to do that with Mercenaries is actually to recruit the most expensive that we rolled here, which kind of sucks. Is these guys, Captain Elisette Gate Bumpers. There's 195 of them. They have 1,500 power, so they're really strong, but they cost 1.6 million and 400,000 per day to up. So it's a lot of money. We are going to spend it. We have 2.46. This is going to go super quickly. We're going to do with this army though, right here, we are going to march directly to these guys, and hopefully we're not going to trespass on anybody's land. If we do, there'll be a problem. It looks like we are though. So unfortunately, because we crossed into their land, they did not like us a lot. I'm just gonna decline this. I don't feel like dealing with them right now. And what I want to do instead, as you guys can see, with this mercenary, we have officially got to Old Cairn proper, and we have this pop up right here. This is the siege window. You can see the difference under military power. Currently we have 195. They have 126. If we can see there, this is the balance. Now, the reason that this balance is so lopsided the wrong way, because it's not the numbers that determine this. It's actually like the fortification level. So currently the army that we have 99% health, but these guys are the defending unit, and they have a ×12 to fortification. So if we were to auto do this, essentially it would result in annihilation, and we'll lose all of our people. So we're not going to do that. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to wait. The other option is to lift and just completely abandon the siege. We're not going to do that. So instead, we're going to wait. This is why it's so important for you to have the upkeep. We basically have 2 days to wait before we completely run out of our ability to do anything, because we can no longer afford these armies. Their defenses are really high. We're going to get 1 more day, and this is about it. So what we can do is we can auto this. You're still going to have to wait, unfortunately. Hopefully we'll be able to break down their defenses. It does not look like it though, unfortunately. Down to 211,000 in our bank. We are running out of denarii. We're not going to be able to actually siege any of this. We can auto it, but now that we have finally sieged them down, so that way their defenses are way lower, we'll actually be able to auto do this, auto resolve the battle, and we will be victorious. We are going to lose 44 men, but of course, because they're mercenaries, we don't care about that, and we kind of want to get this done. Can't afford the mercenaries any longer. If you had your own army, you could probably continue to wait even longer until these guys literally could not even defend themselves. We've whittled them down to 9, their garrison. They're going to easily lose. This is super one-sided, very lopsided in my opinion, the siege mechanic. It does kind kind of makes sense. A fortified city is going to be way harder to do, but it just seems just absolutely ridiculous from the outside in, from someone who wants to siege other occupied territories. Okay, so we are going to auto this. If this was my own military, I wouldn't want to lose any of these people, so I would just wait it out as long as I had the supplies to do so, but we don't. So we are going to press auto, and we are victorious. So with that, we did lose some of the army, 44 of them. We took out a whole bunch of their guys, and now we have some prisoners, and now we're left with a really important decision. What are we going to do with the prisoners? So with all the prisoners, there's 2 of them, so it's not that many. We could capture them. Essentially, if you capture them, that means they're transported to your main city. If you don't have any stockades, though, nothing happens. You need stockades in order to accept them, and then you can decide what to do then. We could also execute them, which you can see down here, the chivalry goes down, minus 0.49. If we capture them, it's a little less of a debuff. We could just completely execute them. If you're a Garthemi, this is actually kind of a good strat. We don't care as much about chivalry for other things anyway. Or what we can do is this move here, and that is release. We get a plus 0.492 chivalry, and that is going to affect every other occupied territory and faction that we interact with later on. As you guys can see, chivalry is one of those bonuses that you'll see in that kind of faction menu. So we are going to go ahead and accept this. So we have captured the region, and now we got to think about what we're going to do with the citizens. We don't have any prisoners. There's no plunder for us to get. There's a lot of devastation. So many people have been there. So we have 3 options. One of them is we could occupy them. That's what we're going to do, but basically means you're taking full control of the region. The other one is that you abandon them and you say, hey, I did all that work for nothing. Good luck. Or you can make them a puppet state. And essentially what that means is that they become vassalized to you. So they're your vassals, essentially. So we could do that. That means we really don't get a say in how the individual territory or region grows or interacts or anything like that, but we do get a yearly tribute. So that's something you could do if you don't want to deal with all the extra stuff, but it's honestly, you spent all the time. This is your first region. Let's go ahead and occupy it. So now, as you guys can see, LaundryTown now owns Old Cairn proper. Now we're going to go to our army. We are going to immediately disband this because we don't want to be losing all that money anyway. But now we got to talk about the next stage. Okay, we have this occupied territory. What do we actually do with it? A nice little indication of the smiley face. We'll talk about that in a sec. But now that you have the city, what do you do? Well, here's what I'll do. First thing you want to do is actually click on the city itself, and you can see this pop up, Old Cairn proper. This is your city menu. It tells you everything you need to know about them. Up at the top, it gives you some options. You could give them autonomy, so you could vassalize them from here directly. You could abandon them, or if you just want a little bit more info, like you see at that other screen, this tells you a little bit about that. The first major decision you should make is something about each of the individual species. Up at the top here says the health. Currently, the health is really low, and that's because the population, so many people had ended up dying, unfortunately, and so we're going to have to do something about that health. We'll get there in a second. This is proximity, so how close are they? They're super close to us. If we had a region that was really far away, this number would be really low. Essentially, that means that they're not as efficient at getting things to you, so that number is really fine for us. Support currently is 0. We haven't really done anything to earn support. Devastation tells us just how much of that area has been messed up, and of course, we've been sieging them and all that kind of stuff for a while, so a decent amount of devastation. If you get raided, you'll also get this as well, and that makes your taxes and things you get back even less. Raid security is the likelihood that you will actually get raided. We have 100% raid security. We're not producing anything. No raiders want to come here, but we want this to be 100%. I'll show you guys how to do that in a sec. And then over here, we have our governor points. Again, I told you I cheated. I started us out with a whole bunch of governor points, so we're at 105. The main way that you get governor points is through your nobles. We don't have any nobles right now. Again, like I said, we cheated. Normally, you'd have way more nobles and things like that, but we don't. With those nobles, you'll be able to do some stuff. We'll get some nobles later, but that's normally the main way that you get those governor points. But again, like I said, we cheated. And then right here is the workforce available. We don't have anybody, but we'll talk about how to increase that later. The workforce is basically going to tell us what buildings we can actually make down. Below that is the possible conscripts. So that's based off of the population. That's another way that you can actually recruit your army based off of your recruits here. We don't really have anybody available because we need to, again, really take care of this settlement region first. And then next to that, you have the defense. Down here, you got religion information. And then over here is the total population and then each individual species population. So you can see all of them. The population is going down because of the devastation and the lack of moisture. So our main goal here is to stabilize the population, grow the population, so that way we can do additional things like use our workforce. So you're going to have an initial decision to make depending on what's going on with your species. Each of these species has a number that tells tells us the population growth. This number, like any other bar that you're going to see in the menu, is going to have a fullness meter. It's going to be bright green if it's that amount, and then based off of the rest of it is either going to tell you if it's that number is going down or if it's going up. If it's an orange, it's going down. The devastation is not helping us at all here. That's kind of what this number is. What's the percentage that it's going to go down? Over here to the right, you will see the loyalty. Currently it's 100%. This seems like a bug to me. They have no reason to be loyal to me right now, and I have found in the past few playthroughs, even when I haven't been kind of cheating, that loyalty, if the specific region had a positive opinion of me, loyalty seems to be relatively high regardless. However, this is going to go down, so you'll watch this go down regardless of what we do. Our job is to keep this high enough so that way they don't rebel. And then down here on the other side, you're going to have some numbers. If they are positive, that's really good. That tells us that their loyalty is going up individual species wise. All that kind of helps us get this number. And if it's going down, that's a problem. So for example, we could potentially massacre any of these specific species that we would like, and that would have some effects that are listed there. We could also just persecute them, which has a less drastic of effect, but some of them do have a lot of drastic effects, or we can exile them. Currently, none of these guys, just in the base level here, none of the species are actually having a negative opinion or loyalty of us, so that's really good. So that means I'm going to be able to keep all of them. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Squeeze we'll talk about a little bit later, but this is the main thing for how you actually grow your occupied territory. It's buildings. We're going to construct some buildings. Once you click on this, you're going to get this menu here, which are the buildings that you can make. Notice that it is all basically grayed out right now, except for this one. This is the city hall, or the base building for your construction. If you click on this, this is going to give you some options. Go ahead and get rid of it. So currently it is on none of them clear. That means there is not a city hall, and you'll see there's different levels to these. If I click on this, it gives me to level 1. If I click on this again, it will give me the option of increasing that. I can go all the way to level 2. That is the max that I can do right here. In order for me to get up to level 3 and things above that, I actually need to invest in technology. Let's go ahead and do that. If I go over to technology and I go to Empire, Organization 1, Organization 2, Organization 3, so on and so forth, we can actually use these in order to bigger sizes for these buildings here. So we can actually make a small town. This is going to increase our workforce, and it's going to give us more things to play. With more workforce, you can make more builds. So we're going to do a small town. Each of these buildings is going to cost you some money. So look at the allocation you're going to use at the bottom here. It tells us how much money it's going to cost, how many governor points we're going to be using, and how much workforce we're going to be using. So if these numbers are positive right here, you're going to see them in blue, and if they're negative, they'll turn red. The first thing that we want to do is we kind of want to stabilize some stuff. You can already see that by putting in a small town that the loyalty has gone down for each of the species. So we want to do a mixture of giving them things that they like, that are going to make them happy, and things that are also going to provide for us. But our main priority right now initially is to keep loyalty up. Means that we need to get these positive. The vast majority of our town, of our occupied territory, is humans. This is the vast majority. After that, it's kind of a mixture between Talapi, Crotonians, and all them, Amevia and Garthemi, kind of the last, but definitely majority humans. With that being said, we're going to try to weight as much as we can of the things that we're going to give them for humans. So you could give them humidifiers, however, that's not going to increase loyalty for humans. It's only going to increase loyalty for Garthemi. So if you had a whole bunch of Garthemi, the bug people, that was the vast majority of your population, that would be a good pick. But since it's not, if I selected it, you can see the huge debuff that we got there. So we're not going to do that at all. Something that we do want to give them, of course, we could give them a tavern potentially. This is going to increase loyalty. We could also increase the size of that tavern. Go ahead and do 1. It's not doing a whole lot for us right now, it looks like. One way to get to your loyalty up really quickly is to use the law. Now with these stockades, it's obviously going to increase loyalty, but it will also actually damage your population. That's one of the effects of this. I'm not going to mess with that as much. We could make a bank, which will actually be able to increase our taxes, blah, blah, blah. I recommend that you read through a lot of these to figure out what you need. It tends to be that the top ones are for like the general health and well-being of your occupied territory, and then the ones at the bottom are the actual production things, right? So I definitely want a bunch of meat if I can. So I'm going to try to get like a level 3 Teledon pasture if that makes sense for us. And you can see that once I did that, we actually started to get some resources here over in the squeeze section. These are the taxes you're going to receive on a daily basis. 175 meat's pretty good, 13 livestock, 1.3, almost 1.4 thousand denarii just from occupying the territory. Now it's all about getting this loyalty and this number positive. So I'm going to make a little bit of work to try to get there, and I'll see you when I'm done. So I made a couple of changes. You aren't going to see a whole bunch of a reflection here immediately, I'm noticing. I've put in all of these. The big things that I changed here is I got a level 2 ale house, which brings up a lot of loyalty for basically every single species. And so these numbers should be increasing, and they are. I'll actually go ahead and press play so you guys can see the numbers. They should be getting positive here very soon, and they are getting positive. With that, the loyalty should stay high, and we're also increasing our population. Devastation is going down. Law is also helping us out with that, and we're positive. The loyalty will stay up. These guys will increase. Our health will get better, and we'll be able to get these resources more frequently. You'll notice that we do have some raiders close to our settlement. One of the big things that I think is important early on, especially, and what we'll do is we'll actually get rid of the ale house in order to do this. You definitely want to have a garrison available. It's there for protection and public order. Our current raid security is really low, and so my recommendation is we get a garrison as soon as possible. Might be a little too little, too late, but you can see raid security actually went up. Unfortunately, we do have a raiding army here messing with us currently. So we are actively being raided because of the military actions. And so the one thing that you'll notice here is if you have a raider, it does not matter if you then add the garrison and the guard posts and all that kind of stuff, because these guys are just going to keep on raiding regardless. In order for you to not get raided, you need to have this up, the guard posts up, well before you actually get a raider. And so because of that, we're actually going to need to form an army really. We'll go ahead and grab an army. We'll just take someone. I wish someone was cheap. They are not. These guys will be good as soon as we can afford them. And let's actually check down on our big settlement here. It is 352. We're down a pretty significant amount of people, which is what it is. I wasn't really paying attention at all to this settlement, to be real with you. But it looks like people were going hungry. That was the big issue. But now that we have our taxes are actually outproducing our auric pastures and our hunter. And so just the one occupied territory alone is doing basically half the work of all of the things that we've done. So you can see just how impactful those can be. All right, still trying to get this area up for our army. The devastation is going to make it harder and harder for us to continue. So let's grab a mercenary army. These guys seem fine. 75k upkeep, so we actually need to hold off a little bit longer to get that money. Go ahead and get rid of the birds. We'll get some extra meat. Why not? We don't need a whole lot of time to mess with this raider army, so this should be fine. We're going to go ahead and recruit them. This is our army. We're going to go ahead and attack these guys. Hopefully we'll get there in time before I run out of money. And with that, we can command or we can auto do it. I'll lose 17 men. I don't feel like losing any of these guys. If you actually lose men from the mercenaries, they need to regenerate themselves, which makes it like way harder. You can buy them again, but they basically become like weaker. And so let's just beat these guys up. Our enemy is these guys right here. We have really good archers, so our plan is basically to just let the other guys run as much as possible. We're gonna take it off auto. A big strat here for us is essentially to let them run at us and get nice and tired, and they will eventually. Blah 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 blah. And as soon as one of them is in range, and they are now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna let them fire at will. This army will devastate them in just a moment. Those guys are gone likely. All right, go ahead and fire at them. Looks like we're running out of bows here. Might need to go and just attack them ourselves. They are getting beat up. They're kind of firing back. They're not as good, it looks like. It does look like we are out of ammunition, so we're just gonna go and attack these guys. Try to run after our area here. Trying to take our throne. That's not gonna work. All right, we didn't lose any of them. That's awesome. So now we got rid of this army, and we're gonna get the spoils back for ourselves, which is pretty sweet. So we could execute them. I'm going to release them, but I will gladly take all these resources. And now that they're set, we'll go back to our army, and we're going to go ahead and disband. Just like that, our occupied territory devastation will slowly go down, and now that we have the border guard, our raid security is going to stay plenty high. Real quick, if you can see, these things are inbound. This right here is actually a caravan from our main city, or from Old Cairn. They just brought us some meat. Let's see if we can watch them do it again. This is just a caravan that's taking their stuff to us. 138 meat and 11 of this livestock. Cool. And just like that, now we're able to provide and feed for our good settlement here. So that's the system overall in a nutshell, right? One of the things that I do want to do is experiment with these factions. And again, you can actually see your realm in here. You can see the things that they are producing for you. Their loyalty, health, happiness, all that kind of stuff. Raider defense, I believe that's what that is. And then over here, if we look at our realms, I really do want to get back to Polclaw and have them be friends with us. Oh, they are friends with us. So we can actually become colleagues again. Here's what this does. We barter for this. It's only 13,000. If we accept this, now we have access to all of their neighbors. So new tribes now we can actually have an alliance with them. Because Pale Claw we are colleagues with, new tribes now we get to have a trade agreement with, and so all of our trade just significantly increased because we just have so much more people to actually trade, and that'll be able to stabilize your markets as well. So for trade it's really helpful, so you can actually use that as a strategy. The only things that you need to do to make that actually happen are find one of your homies. How about Fan Garden? We're not fully there yet. I think we're using all of our points for that. Let's decrease this and see if we can 75. Try to keep them as close as possible without going below 6. Huge increase there. And we'll just put some extra points in here if possible. You can see how flattery is very helpful for other people, because you can, especially if you're a trade empire, you can just significantly increase your trade. And then you'll notice this, if we go to our army and we go to recruit more mercenaries, we have more options to choose from, and then it just becomes about, okay, can we even produce enough to do this? If we can produce enough goods, maybe we can trade more things and then get more mercenary armies and then take over other occupied territories. There's a couple of free lands over here that wouldn't be an issue for us to take. We're basically homies with this gigantic faction over here if we would like to, new tribes. And so maybe it makes sense for us to actually make some sort of agreement with these guys, right? Maybe we can go to diplomacy for them. We can become colleagues with them. It's going to cost us 385,000, but like that's not impossible to get. We're pretty close anyway. And look how many people we'll be able to open up our trade to at that point. Another thing you can do, of course, with tech and things along those lines is you can spend your administration points on things like tax collection. This is a way to get more taxes from your region. Let's do a little test here. If we go to our current taxes from meat, we're getting 137 from our one territory. If we go and actually go to tax collection, should make it so that we can get more taxes. A little confused why that's not. I'll do a little bit more research. Oh, it's just a tax office. Oh, I see. Check this out. Okay, so if I go to Old Cairn, I now have access to a tax office. Okay, let me see if I can get rid of Gallows here. Looks like I really won't be able to, but I do have a little bit more room. Maybe I can then, Tavern would be really good. Maybe the stage is probably the most important I can do, right? Let me try that. Does that make it so that way I lose too much loyalty? So I'm not able to make loyalty work. What is, taxes go up by 2%. This, also our health is down pretty significantly still because of population. Health is below 50%. Our physicians are helping a little bit. We could increase rural health, increase it again, why not? Another thing we can do, of course, is loving subjects, which allows us to make a police headquarters. Go ahead and make a couple of, let's go back down to health. Let's go ahead and get rid of all of these. Considering adjusting all of my tax collection ideas from, we're going to increase to large town, secret police. I'll increase a little bit of that. We do still want the garrison, of course. We could increase hygiene and things along those lines. That will help out a lot with health. Actually, a lot with health. That's huge. The one band station will help out a lot with that as well. And then we could get production of meat from Intelligence or Balta crawlers. My guess is that Intelligence are going to be better. Production meat is 44.69. Oh yeah, so the Intelligence are much better here. That's an insane amount of meat that we'd get, but maybe that's the move. Hard to say. Go ahead and accept that. See how that goes. Yeah, it looks like the Tilapia aren't as happy, but it's probably generally okay. Our loyalty will still stay about roughly 98, and the health will go up. And now we're going to be taking in so much meat. That's actually crazy. Let's go ahead and have this auto up to 700. You can definitely afford it with our meat production here. Just from that one occupied territory. Unite, guys, how expensive? 138 million. We just opened a lot of our trade network, so we should be able to trade a lot more now with all of our resources that we're getting. Happiness is going down a little bit because of probably occupation, religion, all that. What's going on with religion? Why do we have anybody here who's not the same? I have not optimized this in any particular way at all, actually. I just wanted to show you guys a little bit more of the empire building stuff, but the main idea is relatively simple. You build up your main settlement so you can kind of sustain yourself. You get up to a point where you have a decent amount of governor points in order to afford all of these buildings, and then these buildings you make people loyal and happy, and then also give you production. So just this one particular area we've gotten an insane amount of production from. We use some tech to be able to unlock additional buildings that we can make, and of course we needed to have money to make that happen as well. We also use the faction growth and courting diplomacy type of thing, so that way we can get people happy enough in order to actually trade with them like this. We became colleagues with a few different people. You could join an alliance, you can become a protector or become a vassal of a big country, and of course you can always trade as well. You can use your emissary points to flatter people to get your opinion up. You can sabotage to get your opinion down, but also make it more, I guess, agreeable, I believe, to go and actually declare war on them. Whereas if you make a war with someone who you have trade agreements with, it's a really big negative effect on people's trust of you and your honor and all that kind of stuff. You can still work around all these things, and again, I'm still learning more and more. This is a mid and very much late game idea, but if you take these principles here, you can create armies just using your conscripts or your normal armies or your mercenaries, of course, that are available to you. Take over other occupied territories now, get them up so that way they're very loyal, that they're healthy, that they're able to produce a lot, and with your extra governor points, especially if you have humans and other things like that, do this even better. You'll actually be able to put in buildings that provide you a whole bunch of taxes and goods, and then give you map painting abilities. A couple other things you can do with the overlays here. I'm not going to mess with it too much. Paths, diplomacy, so people that you're chill with, people that you're not chill with. We're chill with basically everybody at this point. If you wanted to look up minerals, you could do that. Show you here if you're looking for a specific thing. So one of the things that I did when I was specifically looking for who my first occupied territory was going to be, I actually looked for minerals, and I knew that out of all these guys, these were the only ones who actually had some meat producing deposits, and humans like meat, so it made a lot of sense. These guys to the north of us, Vanguard, and they would be great for grain, so bread production could be a good option there. The bug guys, I guess, make a decent bug guys down here. I guess they're not bug guys anymore, but they're basically bug guys. They would be really good for fruit and fruit trees or wood. Or climate's just nice to know. It's not as helpful, but you can see the vast majority of this is temperate. Species biome tells you what kind of species thrive in those particular areas. Closer to the water, you might get things like tilapia and amoebias, or maybe closer to the mountains, you'll get more Dondorians. Raid security shows you your occupied territories if they are secure. We occupy this one, so it's 100%, but maybe you check this out because you have a gigantic empire and there's some raid security that is an issue. Okay, maybe I go over, check over that area, plant an army, or give that specific territory more garrisons. Health shows you the health of your specific regions. Ours is doing okay, and then loyalty. So these are nice little areas and overlays that kind of give you a broad overview of what you're looking at, and then anywhere that the light touches is yours, Simba. Now that's just an area in which we have some sort of relations with. If we go to our regions, you can see just the vast majority and where they all lie. Lyra is gigantic. That's why we're able to see so much of this area down here, because there's just a gigantic empire, and so we wouldn't be able to match them right now, but we can make good relationships with them. These guys would be great to make trade with. It's very expensive. This one particularly is 410,000, but they would be great trade partners because they can just afford so much more, and so your production of stone becomes a little bit more. We go to our stone export. Because we have all these people, we're able to sell this more consistently because we're not just flooding the market. We're able to get it to multiple buyers, and so the buy price is really high. Same thing with the carpenters and the furniture that we sell, all that kind of stuff. Very valuable. So you can actually increase your money that way. If I go to diplomacy, trade, barter, now I'll be able to add them as well. We can get even more money. All in all, I hope this was generally helpful. The empire building part of this game, I think, has a lot of really great traits. I do think it also kind of has a long way to go before it's fully fleshed out. The reality of this is that the vast majority of players take a while to even get to this point, and when they get to this point, they're really focused solely on kind of their individual settlement. They don't necessarily see how valuable it can be to get other occupied territories. Now, I obviously cheated. I got all of these emissary and governor points like way earlier than I should have. I did that on purpose so I could do this in a timely manner. But if you're thinking about, does it make sense for you to actually grow your empire? Well, a lot of that's going to depend on your actual build and whether you're thinking about how your city is going to be created. If you're Dondorians, I think occupying territories is actually super important, but you actually, you don't even have to interact with the empire map at all. You can make a one city build, and in that case, you would just supplement all of your weaknesses that your species can't produce very well with other species, whether that's through immigration or through interns, and then that way you can build out the big city that you want. And of course, if you're like, hey, I just want to try it out and see what happens, but I don't want to spend a couple hours putting together a few thousand people and a good enough army and then supplying the army or enough trade to get the mercenaries, blah, 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 to take over a city, you can just cheat, man. Give yourself some extra government points, make it so that way your deflation is really good, so that way you can get even more and more money with your trade, all that kind of stuff, right? If you're trying to play the base game, you're gonna have to do it slow. But anyway, that's empire building in a nutshell. Let me know what you guys think. I definitely missed a whole bunch of stuff, so I'm relying on people who have played this game before to give their additional tips. If you're looking for a specific strategy for when to start implementing these things, my general advice is build yourself up enough where you can get an army, regardless of how you get an army, whether that's by producing it yourself or through Mercenaries. Take a city, get the city so that way it's loyal to you, produce as much as you can while keeping them loyal, and then start really focusing on, especially by the time you have nobles, is really when I think the first territory or region is what you should take. The reason being is you're gonna need government. You need governor points, and the only way you get them is through leveling up enough to get nobles. With the nobles at 650 population, you'll get 5 of them. You can assign them 2 government points, and that's how you can do that. And so you actually wouldn't be spending your government points or your nobilities on your production, but you'll just find a little balance. So aim for 650 population to get your government points, have a military, go and occupy a territory, get them loyal with your government points and then your money, and then roll in the money. That's kind of it. Your tech points is the next big thing you want to kind of invest in this. It's all down the empire tree here. This will allow you to build additional buildings, have bigger organization tiers, and all of that good jazz. There's a whole bunch of really great technology you can add in here as well, like caravans are really good. Like I can grab caravans, and essentially this means that our tolls are way less, and so we're going to make more money through that because we're not paying as much through tolls, which is huge for our production. If you go to our denarii here, inflation is a big thing, and you can see that the tolls are relatively high: 21, 24, 7, 6, 11, and 4. So trading through these guys, the farther they are, the more tolls you're going to have. So technology like the caravan could make it so that way you are getting more bang for your buck if you're trading with long distance partners. To get more embassy points, again, really quickly, you are going to need an embassy building. You unlock that pretty early on, actually. Go to your levels, you unlock embassies here at Apprentice. It's very rare that you'll actually be able to utilize this at 400. That seems like way too small of a population number to make sense for me, but I'm dumb, so anyway. And I'm going to leave it there for you to continue to explore. But empire building is a super fun part of this game. I think it's under thought of and underappreciated, and I think I'm probably going to update this video when I learn more things about specific strategies, but I wanted to kind of give you guys a quick overview of what the empire building process actually looks like, so that way you can take it from here and build the greatest empire of all time. Well guys, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate you being here. If you like this content, let me know, like and subscribe. Definitely like it if you enjoy this content, because that lets me know that you actually like it. I'm not going to make the videos if you guys don't actually like them, and so I just want to know that you're actually getting something out of it. Anyway, thanks for being here. I appreciate you. My name's Laundry, and I'll catch you later.